Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome inside the Guilty as Charged podcast, coming to you live after the Chargers win over the Houston Texans. Just me and Tyler today. No Alex, who's prepping for a medical school exam, and Arjun is taking the night off as well. It's all good. That's why there's four of us, right? So we can have episodes like this. So it's just me and Tyler today. Tyler, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing so well. It feels like forever since the Chargers won a game. Okay, it hasn't been that long, but after that whopping against the Jaguars, it was nice to listen. Didn't care that it was the Texans. Just nice to see a W. And currently, potentially, the Broncos losing to the Raiders, but we'll see.
Yeah, so I'm recording at my in-laws, right? And so I walked into the house right as Russell Wilson was hitting KJ Hamler on that big play and then scored the touchdown. So we'll see there. But yeah, obviously here to recap the win today. First and foremost, have to start. Obviously yesterday we did a Q&A fundraiser for Trace Whitaker, excuse me. Zach Whitaker and his family that they had a new baby and having some tough medical issues recently. So we had a positive update about Trace today. So that's very good to hear. Love to hear that in the middle of the Chargers game. So continuing to send them some well wishes. I'll be sure to post the link to the GoFundMe again if anybody wants to continue to donate to that specific cause. And obviously giving a big shout out to Trace and Zach and the rest of the Whitaker family first and foremost today.
Yeah, huge. At some point in the middle of the game, they gave that update, and that just supersedes anything football related at that point because I can't imagine what they were going through. And for them to already have some very positive news about that situation, I just like we had already won. I tweeted out, like, I don't care what the score is, like, we won today because we were worried. And obviously, they were so worried. Like, I can't imagine what they're going through. And for there to be positive news and for you guys to, just from our stream and from you guys going straight to the GoFundMe, raised over $1,300 for them. I mean, are you kidding me? Huge for the Bolt fam, huge for the Whitaker family. I was so relieved to see that post.
Yeah, man, it's obviously stuff like that puts things into perspective. I mean, Brooke and I are coming up on 5 years. We're starting to have the conversations of having children, and I know you guys are getting married in the near future as well. So it hits a little closer to home than obviously we would hope. So like I said, first and foremost, all the positive thoughts to the Whitaker family, and glad to hear that positive update. So all right, we'll dive into this matchup again. Of course, the Chargers coming out victorious 34-24. It was a little closer comfort today. But like you said, I feel like the entire fan base could take a little bit of a big sigh of relief coming off of this game. So, of course, the Chargers jump out to an early lead. Texans, swing right back, and then Chargers ultimately seal the deal. So, Tyler, what's your kind of biggest takeaway as we kind of start with a general scope and then hone into some of the specific standouts and things like that from this victory by the Chargers?
Momentum, I think, is the standout of the day, both because the Texans regained it, but also just it feels like with the offense, it just everything seems so difficult the first 3 weeks, and maybe you get a Carter touchdown down the seam or something, but it just felt like a dogfight all the time. And not that there weren't moments of that today, and in the second half they struggled a bit, but it just felt like they were getting into a rhythm that looked a bit more like we're used to from this team. They scored 34 points. They had 18 plays of 10 or more. Or 10 yards or more. They just looked better, and they did it with, first of all, Salyer at left tackle, but also getting Mike Williams back into the groove of things and getting Austin Ekeler back into the groove of things. And it feels like this is a team. Yes, they did it against the Texans, a not very good defense, but they needed this. And the momentum heading into the rest of the year, hopefully, you finally get Keenan back in limited capacity next week. You're definitely getting Donald Parham back, barring no setbacks. You're starting to build momentum, and it felt like the Chargers found a way to win and to move on offense without having to rely on, those star guys that are out. Like, it felt like, okay, we were shocked heading into the year that we lost Keenan Allen so quickly and that Donald Parham had a setback. There were drives over and over and over again in the training camp. Allen, Parham touchdown over and over again. And it didn't seem like they really knew how to get that momentum going and get it to other guys. Today, whether it's, Ekeler on a screen that should have gone for more also, Mike Williams on crossers. It just felt like more guys were able to get more involved. It looked like they finally found a way to get some of these guys involved, where before it was just like, I don't know, hopefully somebody can separate. Today it felt like they really got things going and there's momentum building into the coming weeks.
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway is really kind of in a similar vein because I feel like we always hear the cliches of, you have to fight through adversity and you have to battle back. You have to be, mentally tough and momentum and, being able to fight through injuries and all this stuff. And I think, this team showed a lot in my opinion, by starting the game the way that they did. And so we've seen several Chargers teams in the past, lose a game like the Chiefs, and obviously the blowout happens, and other teams in the past we've seen wilt again after that. And so to me, I feel like you felt the sense of urgency from the team, from the coaching staff, like you said, getting people in rhythm. It was just a focus point in my opinion. So I've been hard on the coaching staff this year. I know everybody has been harping on Joe Lombardi, but just kind of like the preparation standpoint has not been great. And there were certainly some issues today. But you felt like this team was motivated. You felt like they came back and fought through this adversity, both from last week, losing Rashawn Slater, losing Joey Bosa, and coming out this week in that fashion, I think says a lot. And I think it also says a lot that they were able to withstand the in-game adversity as well, losing losing that kind of lead. And you have the DeAndre Carter fumble, but that would have broken Chargers teams of the past, and it didn't today. They were able to, ultimately hold on. Kind of similarly felt like the Steelers game last year, where it just felt like late in the third quarter where you're like, oh my God, the Chargers are going to really lose this game. But ultimately, they were able to fight through it and come out victorious, which I think it was definitely needed. We talked about this yesterday. This team needed to come out with a win, and they were able to do that. Obviously there's things to clean up, and we'll get into them, but they needed this win, and I think their urgency and their energy, I think, showed that.
Yeah, that's actually spot on with the Steelers game. That ridiculous comeback. There's no way they could possibly, oh God, here we go, and then all that sort of stuff. But
Yeah.
it was nice to see them not just kind of like the defense barely hung on, the Texans missed a field goal. No, it was we scored a touchdown, we got an interception, game over. Like both sides of the football really just kind of closed things out. Would I've liked to see that the entire game? Sure, but it was nice that it wasn't just like, oh, the Chargers escaped with a win, and they sort of did, but they ended the game. Like they ended the game on their own terms, even though they let the Texans back. The Texans never got back ahead, and the Chargers just sealed it. So it was really nice to see, and really nice to see Brandon Staley go for it on fourth down, which really kind of set the tone. We were waiting for Staley to do that in a really critical situation. After getting away from that a bit, he went back to that. And it just felt like the offense from there on just kind of like, okay, like we're going to finish this game, instead of being like will we? Oh, we'll punt it, then maybe the defense will hold. Like, no, once they got that fourth down, it was like, okay, yeah, we're gonna finish this game. We got this, and they did. They closed it out.
Yeah, like you're saying, it feels like this could be a tone setter kind of game for the Chargers. Obviously, I don't have any sweeping declarations of where this team is headed, right? But I think after everything that has happened over the past few weeks, they just needed to be able to show that they can continue to stack up quality performances and get performances from the stars that you do have. This is a big game for Austin Ekeler. I know his rushing yards over expected wasn't great, but you're talking about 60 yards from Austin Ekeler, which I think was a big concern heading into this game. You're talking about 7 catches for over 100 yards from Mike Williams. You're talking about Justin Herbert having a really good day. Khalil Mack had a good day. Derwin had a good day. So obviously you lose Rashawn Slater and you lose Khalil Mack, and that's 2 of your 4 best players. But the rest of the other stars on this Chargers team, for the most part, played really, really well today.
Yeah, and guys, we had questions about like, okay, Mike Williams, like you sandwiched one really good game between 2 bad ones. What can you do? And it doesn't really even look like anything dominant, or did you get that one jump ball and it went for 80 yards, and that's great, but then you were silent the rest of the game? No, it was a nice, consistent presence of those guys that we had questions about. And like you said, in particular, Mike Williams and Austin Ekeler. Ekeler looked great. Huge and almost not full credit, but a lot of credit to the offensive line, because that's the run game. That's how that works. But he looked great. He looked really, really great. And again, momentum heading into a game. Not that the Browns look all that great, but the Browns are going to run the ball better than anybody else they see the rest of the year, probably. And that was an issue today as well for the Chargers defense. But just knowing that, I don't know if they're in for another shootout like last year, but just knowing that there's some positive momentum, like if the run defense maybe gets away from them because, the Cleveland Browns are coming to town, then you feel somewhat better.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's going to be a big test. We talked about earlier this week, obviously, kind of the issue at the second level and the third levels, excuse me, and that really showed up again today. Dameon Pierce able to pop that big run, and so you look at the box score, right, and you see obviously 14 carries for 131 yards for Dameon Pierce today, but 75 of that count comes on one rushing attempt, which if certain players had done their jobs, then you're not talking about a 75-yard run, which really kind of opened the game for the Houston Texans. You could feel, you talked about momentum earlier. That run from the Texans really kind of settled them down and allowed them to kind of execute at a higher level in the third quarter.
Yeah, absolutely. That run, I guess you can find different points for the momentum shift. I felt like after the Filer miss on the screen, that was kind of a momentum shift that we didn't really see, because I think that would have just sealed the game. We wouldn't be talking about some sort of conservative offense thing here. But yeah, then that run, then the fumble, lots of momentum in this game, but it was good to see the Chargers withstand it.
Yeah, and you're talking about the Gerald Everett drop as well as a point that really kind of shifted things, because the Chargers obviously start the second half with the ball and are just unable to get anything going that week. So, we'll see what happens in that regard. I think from a player standpoint, we have to talk about Jamari Salyer, man. I think
Please.
I was, like I said, a lot of nervous excitement heading into this game. Jerry Hughes, very good player. Jonathan Bernard, good player. Rasheem Green, good player. Obviously, they're not like star players, but Brad Spielberger pointed out that Jerry Hughes had like the second highest win rate in true pass sets of any edge rusher in the league heading into this game. And this is obviously subject to change, but so far, PFF has Jamari Salyer as 0 pressures given up. And again, that could change. That's not final. But obviously I was really focusing in on him and seeing how he would do. And there were certainly some kinks that you're trying to work through.
Sure.
But you head into this game and you allow 3 total pressures as a team and 0 from Jamari Salyer, who didn't get any reps at left tackle or right tackle. Well, I guess he got 1 day of right tackle reps, but
Yeah.
Jamari Salyer switching positions in trying to replace Rashawn Slater, who I think is the best left tackle in the AFC. And Salyer passed his first test with flying colors, man. We'll see what happens next week. Obviously, Myles Garrett is a different beast, and we don't know if he's playing yet. But Jamari Salyer gets a game ball from Brandon Staley.
Yeah.
He'll probably get a game ball from one of us today, but just played so calm, so under control. There were 3 or 4 times where I saw Jerry Hughes try and hit him with a counter move or hit him, with a dip and a rip, which I know was kind of a big concern of his that we talked to him about. But he played lights out, man. They were definitely helping him. There was some chipping going on, double teams, but whenever Jamari had to go one-on-one, he handled his business like a pro. And I think you have a lot of confidence, again, from that kind of performance. Salyer getting this start to his career is going to do so much for him going forward. And he deserves a ton of flowers today for sure.
I couldn't believe it. I tweeted as much. We liked him in the draft. We watched him play left tackle. We watched him go against Aiden Hutchinson. We interviewed him. The numbers are good. Everyone liked him. Everyone knew he's a good prospect. And you see it in camp. He dominates. He beats out Hymas. He just beat out Norton, basically. Everything was so positive. I have absolutely no guess that this was going to be the outcome today. It could have been anything. Could have been average. Could have been great. Could have been terrible. And for him to, again, updates eventually from Pro Football Focus, 0 pressures on a day. And yeah, are these guys big name guys that we're facing at edge? No, but the numbers are very, very good. I think both the edge rushers, or 2 of the 3 of them, their win rate was higher than Khalil Mack's. Are they Khalil Mack? No. But to start the year for 3 games, their win rates were higher. And this is a guy who literally did not take left tackle snaps since probably the game against Alabama. And then, no, he was a guard that game, I think, in that championship.
No, he
game.
started at left tackle and then he switched to guard in the middle of the game.
Yeah, so it's been some time for Jamari, and he walked out there and so far allowed 0 pressures. Herbert was hit twice all game. I believe it was the 2 guys that hit him. I believe it was a split on the sack. Like that was it. Like he was clean the entire game, and I thought Herbert maybe bailed a bit early on some plays, but he was really able to just sit back and deal and do his thing. And I don't know, like it was just a very, very different Justin Herbert compared to last week, both in health, but also just, I don't know, there was just something different with Jamari on the field. I stopped watching him after a quarter and a half. He was like Rashawn
Yeah.
Slater. It's like, okay, he's got it covered. Why would I watch him? I'll watch him later. I'll watch the highlights because he's got it covered. I never would have expected Jamar to be this good in his first game. Yes, are they, the greatest players ever at edge? No, but they were really, really solid the first 3 weeks. Amazing. Like game ball, by far the biggest pleasant surprise of the year for me so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, doing this, like I said, without any reps, that's so damn hard, man. So damn hard to come out in any game in the NFL and allow zero pressures, but let alone, switching positions in the middle of the game and being able to do this kind of thing, man. It's unheard of. Like, frankly, this is like Elton Jenkins kind of stuff for the Packers. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying that he's going to be Elton Jenkins, right? Because Elton Jenkins is probably one of the best linemen in the league.
Sure.
But he deserves so much credit for what he did today, and I can't wait to go in and watch the film. So I know the Texans technically get one sack on Justin Herbert, which was really just Justin kind of sliding and avoiding a future hit.
Yeah.
But you head into this game against Houston, zero pressures from either of your tackles today. And again, that can change. It might, but Trey Pipkins is good. Like I said yesterday, full stop. Like, we're not talking about any
Yeah.
qualifiers anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that there are people on Twitter and people in this chat right now saying like Jamari's your right tackle of the future. I think Trey Pipkins is the right tackle of the future, man. Like, as crazy as that
Yeah.
sounds and would have
Mm-hmm.
sounded a month ago, I mean, Trey Pipkins has allowed like 6 pressures in 4 games. That's high level right tackle play.
It is.
Like, full stop.
Yeah.
I mean, Pipkins, again, he has to keep continuing to do this, but Pipkins is playing his ass off right now, and he also
Mm-hmm.
deserves a lot of credit today and for the season.
Yeah, he does. I have, unless Pipkins is commanding some crazy contract, which he won't. There's no first round bias. He hasn't been great before this year. That contract's pretty cheap, and I'm giving it to him. I'll cut somebody else. I'll cut Filer for that contract.
Yeah.
The idea that you could have Rashawn Slater on a rookie contract, Jamari Salyer at left guard, which I think is probably where they have to go if this continues, on a 6th round rookie contract. You have Zion on a rookie contract. You have Trey Pipkins on a $4 million a year deal, $5 million a year deal. I mean, you're paying what, $10 million a year maybe to 4 of your starters on the line, and this might be one of the best lines in the league. That's insane. And it's a big real testament to Nugent and this offensive line group. Are they missing Frank Smith in the run game? I think so, absolutely. But they've shown, at least when they have guys that they can do something with, they can do something with them. And I mean, again, going back to Jamari, look at the guys last year who were really, really good prospects who stunk as soon as teams moved them around back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah.
When you had Jamari playing left guard, right tackle, he's like their 4th string center. So I'm sure that he was taking some reps there.
Yeah.
And, Alex, like, look at Alex Leatherwood. He got cut so quickly, bust immediately. And that's a very, how are they at guard? What would I have graded Alex differently at guard? Maybe, but that's a 1st round, 2nd round pick. And he was a 1st round pick. For Jamar to be able to do what he did when some other guys with higher draft pedigrees could not, it's outstanding. And yeah, people have said it in the chat. This dude faced Georgia every fucking day. Like, he was pretty ready to go. And, but you don't really know that. Like, yeah, okay, you face all these guys, but sure, like Alex Leatherwood, I'm sure faced a very good defensive line in practice every day, and he busted out immediately. Jamari, again, it's one game, but that was so damn impressive. It was amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, you have to keep stacking these performances. But if Jamari keeps this up, man, I think you feel great about the offensive line. And the nice thing there is you don't have to head into the draft and drafting offensive linemen. I think you should. I think it's smart to continually do that. But we headed into the last 2 drafts and like you have to double dip each of the years, and they did. And obviously so far it's working out. And again, like I said yesterday, I think you feel a little bit different if this was the plan all along, was Salyer to be this swing lineman at any position, and that's what he was training at. So that he's bailing out the Chargers in that regard for sure. Again, very clean performance from the offensive line. I think in general, this really did feel like the Philadelphia Eagles game from last year. Eric Smith pointed this out that we don't have official numbers yet, but there was a lot more motion. There was a heavier increase of RPOs. There were more bootlegs, more leak routes from Mike Williams and Trey McKitty and Gerald Everett. And it just felt like they headed into this game and said, okay, like we're gonna lean into the easy things, and there were certainly some things to clean up. Like I said, we'll get into those. But it did feel like they were prepared to, give Justin Herbert and this offense some gimmies, and I think that's a smart approach going forward. I mean, what they did the last few weeks is not sustainable when you're asking Justin Herbert to drop back 50 times a game and keep trying to do these traditional play action concepts. Doesn't work when you don't have an offensive line that can, really perform those, and obviously you don't have the speed. So I just felt like the offensive game plan, to at least to start the game, at least in the first half, was just so much more clean than we've seen so far this year. And I think that should be encouraging going forward. Again, they have some things to clean up, some personnel decisions that I think absolutely need to improve. But more motion, more RPOs, more inside runs, more runs to the right side. We were all asking for that kind of thing, or at least I was. And I think you saw them do that. And I think, that coaching staff deserves a tip of the cap for at least a minor one, for leaning into what I think is the smart approach for this game overall.
Yeah. You can only you can only ask for so much. Like against the Eagles, were they a great defense heading into that game? No. Last year, they really weren't. And the Chargers got, I forget how many points, but they scored on, most of their drives. And things kind of looked simple, and they got things working, whether it was a screen to Steven Anderson or whatever it was. Like things just looked a bit easier that game. And yeah, they look easier this game too. Again, are the Texans a good defense? No, it doesn't seem like they're a good defense. We knew that going into the game, and we clearly saw that today, that they're not the greatest defense ever. And who knows what's up with Stingley right now, but it was nice to see. And even just someone like Mike Williams, go back to him.
Mm-hmm.
It never seemed easy this whole year with Mike Williams on
No.
really anything. I mean, maybe he thinks the jump ball is easy, but it's always like, what's your separation? It's half a yard. It's just me being taller than you are, jumping higher than you are, or I'm just a bigger body on a curl route. Today felt like a day where Mike Williams made things very easy for Joe Lombardi, made things very easy for Justin Herbert. Like, okay, I will separate on 3 different slants this game. And it was pretty no-brainer. Unless Herbert was going to be off target on the throws, he was wide open on 3 different slants.
Mm-hmm.
I think 2 of them either on the last drive or pretty close to the last drive that opened things up for the offense and really allowed them to continue. It was a very complete performance from Mike Williams. Things just look easier, and guys just also did things that made the offense more efficient because they showed up today.
Yeah, I mean, we talked after the Chiefs game, like the amount of times that Mike Williams was getting targeted on 3rd downs and 4th downs just hasn't really been there consistently. But today it was. I mean, Derek Stingley is a good young rookie corner. I know he was banged up at the end of the game, but Williams had a really good game, man. I mean, I know there was like the one gimme on the post route, but I thought that he played a fantastic game. And again, showing up when the team needed it most. You lose, obviously, Keenan Allen. You lose Jalen Guyton. Josh Palmer goes out early in the second quarter and then comes back. So Mike Williams shows up, man. And I think, how about Michael Mandy, dude? Finally gets elevated like everybody's been clamoring for. Josh Palmer goes out, and then Mike Bandy comes in, and he makes 2 huge plays right before the half. So, we've been asking this receiver core to step up to the task at hand, and I thought for the most part they really did that today.
Yeah, I think Jamari Salyer having a really good game is what we wanted, but I didn't realize I needed Michael Bandy to show up on 2 separate corner routes or whatever it was and get, what do you end up with? 50 something yards, 40 something yards. He got 49 yards on 2 targets, 2 catches, 2 targets, each of them like 20 something yarders. Didn't know I needed that, but that was awesome. Will that continue for the Chargers? Will they keep him active? I don't know. I really don't know what they're going to do. But they kind of have surprised us today, even with their actives, inactives, with Otito being inactive. So I don't know. We'll see. Although I guess Bandy is an elevation, not an active, inactive sort of thing. But I mean, Jason Moore, like
0 targets.
I don't, not that he's bad. And I think remember on the stat sheet, he had like 50 yards last year against the Texans. But like Michael Bandy just walked onto the field and had 2 great plays on offense and was their guy on special teams who helped make a tackle there as well. So, and also, if we're being completely honest, DeAndre Carter didn't have the best day returning the ball. So Bandy is someone I would definitely consider. And, if they had to bring Christian Covington onto the active roster because they were worried about someone signing him, I think a 50-yard day from Michael Bandy carrying over right from the preseason might be a reason to sign Michael Bandy off the practice squad. So I think another team could poach him, or you might have to make a decision.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't, again, this is like a very similar conversation to like Storm Norton and Jamari, where it's like, okay, our decision is to sign Jason Moore to the or to the active roster, but then we don't trust him over Michael Bandy when Josh Palmer goes down. Like it didn't make any sense to me why you signed Jason Moore. I guess Eddie pointing out that the legal grounding was technically to Jason Moore, so he had one target, which was a penalty. So that's fun.
Great.
Um, so it just didn't make sense to me why you signed Jason Moore so quickly. You could have waited.
Mm-hmm.
You could have elevated some guys to the active roster from the practice squad, and you don't have to waste signing him to the active roster. So was definitely confusing there. Definitely confused about Otito playing over Christian Covington. That said, I think the next group that I want to talk about here is the interior defensive line of the Chargers. And I know
Mm-hmm.
that there were a couple big runs, but I mean, Morgan Fox, 4 pressures, at least 2 hits on Davis Mills and the sack. Sebastian Joseph Day right now has 4 pressures and a sack and another QB hit. Jerry Tillery forced a fumble, man. I think that this might have been
Big,
Jerry
man.
Tillery's best game of his career. Like, I don't know. But this interior pass rush, we've been asking somebody to step up and take some attention away from these edge rushers. And they showed up in a big way. And the Texans interior is nothing to laugh at, man. I mean, Kenyon Green has been playing really, really well. And obviously we know how Scott Quessenberry can play. And AJ Can is a solid right guard. So if you get this, obviously you're not going to get this exact production from the interior defensive line. But if you can just make teams honor your pass rush from the interior, I think that's going to pay huge dividends for Khalil Mack and the edge rusher group going forward. So again, interior pass rushers today showed up in a big way.
They did. Morgan Fox has continued to be just a nice, solid rotation piece for this team. At this rate, I'm absolutely bringing him back next year, both because of production, on-field look, and just how it looks, the way he's winning. I believe he was like an edge. No, he wasn't an edge rusher. Never mind. Khalil was the edge rusher on that hit that forced the interception, I believe.
Yeah.
But still, very, very productive. And yeah, Jerry Tillery, like I'll give it to you, dude. Honestly, we were waiting for. We were joking for 3 weeks, like Jerry Tillery exists challenge, but seriously, like Jerry Tillery was like a non-factor, and to a certain extent, Sebastian Joseph Day, different role, but he kind of was too. And to see both those guys make an impact this game, and Morgan Fox continue to look good, they needed something. With Joey Bosa out, like I don't know, did Rumph and Van Noy have much today? I think Rumph had 2 pressures, I believe, based on early stats. They needed somebody else, and they got somebody's else's. They got more guys today to step up, and that was really, really good to see. When is their next big quarterback matchup? Not next week.
Broncos would be week 6.
Okay. Well, there you go.
So Chris Rumph initial tally is 3. Kyle Van Noy 0. So I didn't really.
Remember what the. Yeah.
I don't remember seeing him a ton at edge, to be honest with you. Like I felt like I saw him play some run defense. I felt like I saw him more so rush the passer as like a blitzer in his old role. So curious to see how that snap breakdown works. There was some Derek, is it Tuxa? I don't even know how you say it.
Oh gosh, I don't know.
Yeah. I felt like I saw him a lot more than I was expecting, but it felt like this was Chris Rumph's job. Like it really did feel that way. So I thought he played okay. I mean, 3 pressures is nothing to laugh at, but there were definitely some run defense issues, definitely some high moments. So he's a young player in a new role, and you kind of expect that. But obviously, you want to see more from Kyle Van Noy going forward for sure.
Ooh, Chargers ended up with 10 quarterback hits and 4 sacks. That's fantastic. I mean, things did not look good for Davis Mills. Was it some of it self-inflicted? Yeah, like he didn't play except for like 20 minutes. They gave us a heart attack. He didn't play all that well, but still, like it was really, really good job from the Chargers today.
T22 says it's pronounced Tuska, like a Tuscan Raider without the N.
Oh, dude, if he sacks the quarterback, I am making the Tuscan Raider. Like that is my thing. Absolutely my thing. Just like hold a stick over my head and just like I'm not gonna do it here. He has to earn that.
But, yeah, he does have to earn that. I mean, we'll see. I feel like I saw him like probably 5 or 6 snaps, but wasn't a ton. But I wasn't really expecting to see him at all. T22 says yes, sir. So Tuska with like Tuscan Raider, but without the N. So there we go. Cool. All right, Tyler. Anybody else you want to give a positive shout out here?
Um, in certain moments, I think maybe there's a couple of plays that didn't work out, but I thought Asante Samuel Jr. was pretty solid. Like to see some tackles today, so that was good. Who else? I mean, we kind of covered the entire interior defensive line, so that was a big one today. Oh, Derwin James. Derwin James was awesome today. You
Hmm.
literally just asked him to do whatever. I don't know how many pass defenses he ended up with. Felt like 3. If it wasn't 3, then he was dropping guys short of the stick. So I mean, Derwin was awesome today.
Yeah, at least according to ESPN, they have him at 2 passes defended. But
Okay.
this broadcast group, man, I was just like, what are we saying here? Like this
Oh yeah, generational.
commentator calling OJ Howard a generational talent. Like, what are we doing? Like, oh man, I was dying at that. And then the way that the lady was saying Khalil Mack,
Oh gosh.
I'm like, come on. So that was a frustrating one. I mean, it was the bottom tier CBS broadcast group, but um it was a rough day. But Derwin, it's just such a big advantage. It changes the math, right? Because he's able to play man to man coverage against
Mhm.
any of your tight ends. And obviously, when you're talking about Jordan Akins and OJ Howard, who are not good players, he's able to just really kind of erase them. And I thought he was obviously fantastic. So I'm curious to see really what his snap breakdown in terms of like roles is from PFF, but
Mhm.
I felt like he was again just great in coverage, and he's able to really flip the map for them for sure.
Yeah. Um, I do want to bring this up only because people are asking about it. At this point, there's like 3 super chats that are about it. Should we be concerned about JC's play? There's other super chats as well. I want to rewatch what happened on that big play because my understanding on first watch was that he had outside leverage and he was supposed to have help from Nasir Adderley inside the exact same way that he sort of, got beat against the Chiefs and Watson or whatever his name is on that touchdown. So
Hmm.
other than that, like, yeah, that missed tackle sucked for sure against whatever was it Akins or Atkins, the tight end. But I wasn't super concerned overall. What did you think?
Yeah, so Brandon said he was asked about that, and he was pretty upset about it. It sounded like again, it was the same play that the Chiefs did, same mistake by Nasir Adderley. So Nas is struggling, man. I don't know what's happening. There was a lot of positive talk around him heading into training camp, but I mean, every big play I feel like is related to Nasir's struggles. So he was really solid for them last year. He's been fine. I don't want to say he's like taking a big step back, but he definitely is not playing at the same level as last year. Um, you know, Leaving your cornerback out to dry, especially one who is coming back off of ankle surgery,
Mhm.
is not a great look for him. So, I tweeted this out. To me, safety is like number one in terms of draft needs at this point because this. I know that people are going to talk about receiver, people are going to talk about offensive line and edge rusher and everything like that. This defense cannot function at any level if you do not have quality safeties playing behind Derwin James. So Nazir Adderley is really struggling in a big way. I hope that he's able to change it and bounce back. And we've seen, again, like Austin Ekeler has been struggling and he bounced back, and Mike Williams was struggling and he bounced back. I'm hoping the same can be said for Nazir Adderley, but I mean, he's not playing great right now. So long way of answering that I'm not super concerned about JC just yet.
Mhm.
I think this is him, kind of he's got to work his way back into shape. I mean, he's only
Yeah.
had 2 practices in the last 2 months. So be patient with JC. He's got to get back into the swing of things. He's still learning a new defense. But I'm definitely starting to be concerned about Nasir Adderley.
Yeah, I agree with JC, and I'm glad you caught that Staley did clarify about that play because it did look like the exact same thing. I was ready to kind of not debate you, but like about the whole safety being the number one concern heading into next year. Obviously, that'll depend. Like if Pipkins is not
Right.
back, and then maybe like we're having a different conversation. But assuming he is back, I was going through it. It's like, well, okay, like how do I usually look at the draft? Okay, they have the line figured out. Edge maybe like, and I think Edge is definitely still up there. Receiver would be good, but then like you have two. And I think they have the same philosophy where, well, they have Mike Williams, they have Keenan Allen, they have Josh Palmer. Therefore, we don't need to draft a receiver in the first round. That's kind of just what they did last year.
Yeah,
In
it's going to be
any
the same
round.
conversation. Like,
Right.
everyone needs to prepare yourselves right now. They are not drafting a receiver in the first round next year.
Yeah. I mean, I'll wait a little bit to officially say that, but I do feel like your point about safety was right. And looking over, I mean, heading into this game, just particular talking about the run, I was concerned about Nasir Adderley and what happened. Right
Mhm.
now, there are rushes, and the first one should have been a touchdown of 52, 50, and 75 that went right past him. You
Yeah.
can't win close games in the third and fourth quarter in the second half when guys are just getting free touchdowns. Now that's not all on him, right? There's 10 other guys in the field as well. Um, but you got to be a little bit better than that. So you've got those 3 plays, which are definitely concerning. And then we just talked about the second time this past year where JC had outside leverage. Adderley was either absent or did the wrong thing, left him hanging. So it's a 41-yard touchdown to Justin Watson, and then the 58-yarder today to Nico Collins. So Nasir Adderley, the last 4 weeks, has allowed 5 40-yard plays to
Yeah.
go his way. Not that he's completely responsible, but he's very much so responsible. And that's just the ones I can think of at the top of my head. There might have been other passes that went his way that he wasn't around for to do anything about. But that's a lot. And the Chargers, EJ Snyder from the Bootleg Football Podcast posted that the Chargers have given up the most second half points in the league. And yeah, looking at some of these plays, the run of 52, the run of 50, the run of 75 today, Justin Watson, maybe even would have been the second quarter.
Mhm.
But then the 58-yarder to Nico Collins. Like, if you're trying to close out games, like, forget, Lombardi's conservative play calling or whatever. If you're giving up a 40 or 50-yard play every single game, and that's literally just the one I can think of, that was your fault, it's going to be very difficult for the Chargers to close out games. So I have faith in him improving and getting better, but things just look a little funky right now, and I'm not entirely sure why.
Yeah, there's a disconnect to me when it comes to the way that they are kind of defending these big runs. And so the same thing that happened against the Jaguars happened again today. So against the Jaguars, they go heavy package. They bring 3 tight ends in, and the 3 tight ends are all on the left side of the offense. And so Kyle Van Noy is out there. You're in a penny package, which is 5 defensive linemen, 1 linebacker, and then 5 defensive backs. And so Kyle Van Noy just shoots the gap inside, and essentially he takes himself out of the play. But there's an argument to be had, like, okay, like maybe his job is to say, I'm just going to try and mess up these blockers, and hopefully my guys behind me are able to, make up the difference. So against the Jaguars, Bryce Callahan and Nasir Adderley run into each other and take themselves out of the play. And the Jaguars are really smart in that that approach. They ran opposite of Khalil Mack and Drew Tranquil and Derwin James. Weird. Smart things happen when you go on the opposite side of the 3 best players on defense. And then today, the same thing. Chris Rumpf is on the right side, and Nasir Adderley's out there. Drew Tranquil's out there. And Chris Rumpf shoots the gap and slants inside, which theoretically should have allowed Drew Tranquil or Nasir Adderley to come up and make the play, but both of them over pursued or took a bad angle. Drew Tranquil shot way too far to the sideline, and Nasir Adderley was too slow getting over. So it was the same issue, right? If you're going to instruct your edge rusher to just shoot inside and try and take 2 blockers with him, you have to be sound over the top flowing to the ball. And the Chargers have not been able to do that. So there's some disconnect, because I feel like from a front perspective, the Chargers are playing the run very, very well. But there's this weird thing with Kenneth Murray shooting the gaps in taking himself out of plays. There's Nasir Adderley taking himself out of plays. There's Bryce Callahan taking himself out of plays. So I don't know how they fix this, because if their plan for Kenneth Murray is say, hey, just like go shoot this gap and figure it out, I don't know how that changes. So there's a disconnect with the run defense for sure that's causing these big plays. But I think from a front perspective, the Chargers defense is playing pretty well. You just
Yeah.
need better from your second and third levels.
Yeah, it's tough to watch. Like you said, the defense, I don't know what the yards per carry was for Dameon Pierce outside of that 75-yard run, but like they're playing pretty well. Then all of a sudden, boom, 75 yards, and everything looks, terrible. He gets his, career defining, game of the season.
Yeah.
And, hopefully they play better because the Browns are on deck, and that doesn't sound very fun. We've seen that happen before, and hopefully the DBs can wrap up. I don't even know if did anyone have a run stop today in run defense? Derwin, maybe. There were some pass stops for
Oh, in
sure.
terms of secondary,
Mm-hmm.
no, I feel like Derwin was maybe the only one. Asante had some really good plays
He did.
in terms of like those quick RPOs and coming up in support that way.
Yeah.
But no, outside of Derwin, I would be pretty surprised if any of the safeties or any of the DBs had a run stop.
Yeah.
To your question, though, if you take out the 75-yarder, it was 4.3 yards per carry for Dameon Pierce.
Oh,
56 yards on 13 carries, which, again, it's not great, but, shows how important it is to not allow that big play.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. My biggest gripe from today, from the offensive perspective, is the way that this team did not just simply keep the personnel that was working. I mean, you're talking about a first half where you score 27 points on the board and you have Joshua Kelly, Austin Ekeler, Mike Williams, Michael Bandy. They're all making big plays, right? And then in the second half, it was like almost like they wanted to establish Sony Michel so badly. I don't understand what is happening. And I get it, Sony Michel is a vested veteran. He's done a lot of good things in this league. He was the Rams leading director last year. The way that they used him was poor as well, but I don't understand, if you're in this running back by committee, why are you not continuing to ride the hot hands, which were Austin Ekeler and Joshua Kelly? The run game looked so much better with them in, and they're able to do play action, which I talked about yesterday. Like, the biggest problem of the Chargers offense was that nobody gives a shit about their play action game because they can't run the ball. And in the second half, it was weird. Like, why are we running toss plays with Sony Michel? Why are we running outside zone plays with Sony Michel to the left with Salyer and Filer? Then that's not really their game together. So I have a big issue with the way that they abandoned what was working, not necessarily like their overall strategy. Like, there were people obviously talking about being too conservative, but you're up 20 on the Texans. You have a backup left tackle. Your quarterback's banged up. You don't have Keenan Allen. You don't have Josh Palmer. I'm okay with the overall strategy of running the ball. I'm not okay with the way they went about it. And Sony Michel, again, I was excited about that signing, but we've had 4 games and he's under 3 yards a carry. And it's bad. So if you want to activate Isaiah Spiller and let not even activate because he's on the active roster, but if you want him to be your RB3, that's fine. But this backfield should be 90% so Austin Ekeler and Joshua Kelly at this point, in my opinion. And we've seen that in glimpses, right? But they've just never leaned into it. So that's my biggest issue from the offensive game plan today. It's not that they were like too conservative or that they ran the ball too much. The Sony Michel thing just needs to stop. And the way that they're using him needs to stop, in my opinion.
Yeah, the idea of Michel getting touches in the game, couple touches, 3 touches, 4 touches, okay, like sure. And he did have a great run on, I think, 3rd and 2 today, where that absolutely should have been a tackle for loss, and somehow he was able to keep going for a first down. So he deserves to be out there in some capacity. I don't want to just take Michel off the field. I just think you and I and everybody just wants Kelly to be on the field to a certain extent. And last week, he didn't have a carry until literally the final carry of the game, and it went for -3 yards, and that was it. And I don't need him to replace Austin Ekeler. I don't need him to be the RB1B or whatever, but I just completely forgetting him. I mean, you have him. Okay, I get it. Looking at last year wasn't great, but you see him look good in training camp. You see him look good in the preseason. You see him look good kind of even this season in small moments. And then you see him look good in this particular game. And they go, Sony Michel. Almost kind of like the way they had Jalen Guyton had that huge play against the Jaguars, and then we just never saw him again until somebody else got hurt. Maybe he wasn't open, I don't know. But I have a feeling he didn't have many snaps until Palmer really went out. I don't know what the decision is there for Sony Michel.
Yeah.
To his defense a bit, the run blocking also didn't look that great in the second half. He didn't get many favors, and the Texans defense did play pretty well. But yeah, it looks different with Joshua Kelly. When it comes to running backs too, listen, he's healthier, I would assume. He's younger. He's more fresh. There's less mileage. I don't see why you wouldn't, no offense to running backs, run him into the ground until it doesn't work. Like, you have a back
Yeah.
on a rookie contract. You keep getting these backs on rookie contracts because you don't want them to stack up so much mileage. Why not run Joshua Kelly into the ground, especially when the numbers say that, hey, he's pretty good. And just the eye test. I don't know what it is, but Joshua Kelly right now, there's a half yard more in pop. He's a little faster. He's a little stronger. Things just look a bit different. Whereas Michelle, he can get you 3-4 yards a carry, although I don't think he is right now. But it just looks tough. It just looks slow. It requires good blocking. I feel like Kelly can get you a bit more. So I would love to know why they keep moving away from Joshua Kelly. And if Isaiah Spiller can't get on the field because he's not the third or second best back, and so he has to keep fighting for his job, what made Michelle immediately get on the field so quickly over guys when he doesn't look better than Joshua Kelly right now, even in small sample size. So definitely a bit confusing there. Would love to know why Kelly is not getting more touches.
Yeah, I think if you want to keep him as your short yardage back and keep him as a goal line back, I think that's fine. Credit to him. There were two instances in which he probably should have been tackled for loss, and then he ended up getting a first down late in the third quarter and early in the fourth quarter. But I don't like the way that they handle the rotation, because in the first half it was all Ekeler and Kelly. It was working, and then in the second half, I feel like Michelle played more snaps than Ekeler in the second half. Like, until the very end when it was like, okay, we have to score points. Let's get Austin back involved.
Right.
So I don't like the way that they went about it. And, I thought that they were really smart in the way that they got the run game going in the first half. And then in the second half, it was like they just wanted to see what if Jamari Salyer could do what Rashawn does and do all these outside zone things and do all these sweep toss looks and things like that. And it didn't work. And, maybe they'll make that adjustment going forward. But I just want to see them lean into the guys that are earning the snaps and earning the production, because Joshua Kelly is just a far superior back at this point. And like I said, I think this should be 90% Ekeler and Joshua Kelly going forward.
Yeah, it was so confusing last year to watch them try to cycle through this rotation of like, okay, Kelly's active, but
Yeah.
then Roundtree's like, Kelly would have 40 yards and they make Roundtree active, and then he'd get 4 yards, and then they'd make somebody else active, and then they'd have what's his name? Not Gainwell. Who was the guy that we had? The bigger guy.
Oh,
Bradwell.
Bradwell. There you go.
Yeah,
There's Bradwell.
Yeah, they'd have him active and he'd get a target. Like, what are we doing? And then
Yeah.
suddenly they settled into this thing where it was like, okay, yeah, Austin Eckler's are obviously our best back. Justin Jackson's our next best back. We'll need a third guy just because, but we're just going with those guys the rest of the way. So hopefully they
That's
eventually
true.
settle into that. But it's hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else that you want to hit on from an adjustment standpoint, from a negative standpoint, before we kind of move on to the end of the show?
I don't know. Like, I don't know what people wanted from the second half from Lombardi. Yeah, or success obviously is what you'd want.
Right.
But like, I didn't like, my prediction for this game was 23-20 or whatever it was, 23-21. They scored 34. And so that's better than I expected. So to me, I'm like, okay, I see a lot of positives. You're literally down your best player outside of Justin Herbert on offense, I think, in Keenan Allen. And he scored 34 points.
And your
And
third and Slater.
yeah, exactly. So I don't know what people expected. I think, again, we are one Matt Filer awareness play away from Austin Eckler having like another 60 yards on a screen, because that thing looked like it was going to be gone. They absolutely fooled the entire Texans defense on that screen, except for the one guy who was unblocked by 3 Chargers players. Otherwise,
Yeah.
that thing was gone. It was literally like the exact same play they had against the Broncos last year, where Eckler got, I think, 40 yards on a reception. That thing was gone.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're not talking about that because they missed a block, Ever drops a ball, poof, here we are. What I would want them to, like you said, move away from those outside zone runs with Jamari out there. That's just not him, and I don't even know why you think that's him. The toss plays, I think you just like have to run them because you can't always run inside. Like, I don't know, like I feel like they're just there to show something else. It's just not really working outside right now. So just stick to the guys that work, and that's kind of it for me in the second half. Execute better. I know people are frustrated by the lack of second half explosiveness, but I'm not super concern just yet. Like they did a pretty solid job today overall.
Yeah, I think you wanted to see this offense take a step forward, and I think they did that today. Eric Smith was all over the explosive plays happening today, and I think they ended up matching the amount of explosive plays that they had in the first 3 games, basically at like the start of the fourth quarter. So I felt like the offense did take a step forward. I felt like the play calling for the most part was much better than what we saw against the Jaguars for sure, and definitely better than the second half against the Chiefs. You just want to see some tweaks. You want to see some better execution. I mean, that drop from Gerald Everett, man, was so egregious. He probably got away for the offensive pass interference as well. But you just can't have things like that. You can't have things like the screen pass. And also like the play where Justin Herbert steps up and he ends up kind of just sliding and taking a sack.
Yeah.
Those 3 things were all kind of drive killers. And the Chargers have been not so great at avoiding the negative plays today for the most part. They were pretty good in that regard, and you want to see them continue to build that. So, the offensive performance today was solid for me. I wish that they would continue to sustain drives in the second half, and like I said, lean into the personnel that's working. But we all wanted to see a step forward. We were not optimistic of them scoring more than 28 points, let alone 25. So you get 34 points on the board. I think everybody should at least take that and be relatively pleased with the performance overall.
And I'm looking for, as Michael Lopez points out, not anytime soon, but soon-ish. Herbert moving a bit more. Things just look funky. And he's always had this weird, like last year, he'd step up, but like not really, but he'd try to run, but then he would slide and like right into the Patriots, defensive line. It's like, well, why would you do that? And so things were just kind of awkward. They're still awkward. I get why he would slide. You don't want to take those unnecessary hits in the open field. But I would hope that almost just like an easy fix and evolution to their offense. Herbert gets healthy. Herbert should move more. Like he should be able to run more. And I think we're going to see that. Just we haven't quite been able to see that just yet.
Yeah, and I thought he played significantly better today. I mean, he got pretty lucky on the one dropped interception from the linebacker when the linebacker jumped for no reason, which I was like, oh, like live, I was like, what is Justin doing? Like that's a pick. And then they're like, oh no, he dropped it. And I was like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
But other than that, I thought he played a really clean game, ran the offense at a high level. I mean, had some really high level throws as well, like he always does. So I think this was, again, a very positive step forward for Justin Herbert. The broadcast said before the game that he was like wincing and was like not feeling super good, I guess. But I don't know if he took a pain-killing shot or not. But, overall, as Justin continues to progress with his health, then the offense should theoretically get better. And again, like you mentioned earlier, you get Keenan back next week, potentially. I kind of doubt that. You should get Donald Parham back, though, and I think that'll be another boost, especially in the run game.
Absolutely.
All right. I think I know where I'm going with my game ball for today, but where is your head at in terms of giving out a game ball today?
All right. Well, then I will not take that player. I'll take Mike Williams because he was, through the first 2 games, my worst graded wide receiver of the bunch. Don't know after the Jaguars game. I would imagine it wouldn't have been that great. Again, the highlight plays are there, but what about every other play? When you watch 50 of his plays, it's really not that great. It's just 3 really, really solid ones. And that's kind of why he got paid $20 million. But today was the first time, I really think, since the Chiefs game. He had great moments against the Raiders in that final game last year, but that was just kind of like a desperation, crazy fourth down, whatnot. I have not seen him win on those man-to-man coverage slants probably since the Chiefs game in Arrowhead last year in week 3. It had been a really long time since I saw Mike Williams win in more ways than just, I am bigger, I am stronger, I might be faster, or whatever.
Like Empire.
Yeah, exactly. And listen, that is great for him. He's good at those things as well. But you can't, sometimes you just need a 3rd and 3, a 3rd and 4, 3rd and 6, whatever it is. And Mike Williams has really struggled, at least as I can remember last year, versus press. Like that's just really not his thing. Against man, he's not great. He can't separate. So today, see 3 different, like forget the big shallow cross that went for 40 or whatever it is. Forget all that. I love today, like the 3 plays that went for 28 yards or whatever it was. Those slants to me were huge because if you can get that and you bring Keenan Allen back, things are like that. Just it's very, very different. Mike Williams has not really been the same post injury. I think it was against the Browns last year or whatever it was.
Mm.
And he really just like that looked like the guy that started out 2021 so hot and earned his $20 million.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good call. Like I said, they needed Mike Williams to have this kind of game, especially after Josh Palmer goes out. A receiver core of Mike Williams and DeAndre Carter and Michael Bandy and Jason Moore. It's like, okay, like we need our $20 million guy to step up, and he absolutely did that. Sounds like Arjun would give a game ball to the interior defensive line, Sebastian Joseph Day, Morgan Fox in
I'm cool with
particular.
that. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he wants to drop run stop stats. I don't know if those are available on Pro Football Focus, but if they are, Arjun, feel free to hand those out. But we obviously talked about the pressures and well deserved there. Game ball for me obviously has to be Jamari, man. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about this all week. What he did this week is insane. It does not make any sense for, I know he probably should have been a higher draft pick, right? But
Yeah.
a 6th-round pick training exclusively at guard, and then Rashawn Slater gets injured, and you have 3 practices to pick up a left tackle in the NFL is just insane, man. Like, my brain thinking of this outcome happening yesterday, there's no way. Like you said earlier, I picture like a solid performance, did some good things, had some struggles, probably got beat a couple times. Him allowing 0 pressures, and again, that of course is subject to change. It's unheard of to me to look at a Charger offensive lineman training at guard and then playing tackle and then potentially dominating this game against the Houston Texans.
Mm-hmm.
So Jamari Salyer, you got a game ball from Brandon Staley. He gets a game ball from me. I cannot wait to watch the film, but just so under control, so poised. Felt like he had an answer for everything that the Texans were throwing at him. So it's unheard of, man. It really is to me to look at what he was able to do. And again, I think this is going to give him a ton of confidence going forward.
Yeah, I don't. Never would have guessed. I really just would not have guessed this performance. And it was calm. I don't think he was penalized. There's no, crazy holding penalty.
Yeah.
No one beat him on the outside, to my recollection. Everything just looked really like people trying spin moves, all sorts of things. He was just patient. He was striking early. He would kind of did whatever he wanted. I don't remember. I mean, you chat, maybe think of one. When was the last time a rookie not in the first round had a debut this good?
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, technically Keenan had a solid first game against the Eagles, but that wasn't like, it wasn't like he was the number 1 receiver and was getting 100. Like, to me, this is like a 150-yard game from a rookie, 6th-round pick receiver. Like, for him to be that good, I didn't expect it. If you guys can in the chat can think of another rookie debut from a non-first rounder that was that good, let me know. I think this one it's up there.
Yeah, I think Asante last year at Washington was good, but it was obviously, it didn't feel like this. I can't really remember what like Hunter Henry did, but in terms of a day 3 pick, man, never happened. I mean, I shouldn't say never because there's always somebody, I feel like, but in my lifetime, man, I can't remember a day 3 pick in his debut coming in and playing like this. Just again, biggest hat tip possible to Jamari Salyer today.
Yes, as Arjun points out, got the GAC bump. Did it absolutely. You had the Everett interview after the Chiefs game, so I would say there's a mild GAC bump there for sure. Got the touchdown today, picking on poor Jalen Petre, and Salyer much delayed, but he got the GAC bump for sure. So I still take credit for that. Don't talk to me about the fact that we interviewed Larry Roundtree.
He's really the only one though, man. I think he actually scored. I think he scored his first touchdown after we interviewed him last year.
Okay. All right.
So I'll take it. Arjun also pointing out that Sebastian Joseph Day and Austin Johnson each had 3 run stops. So that's a big day for Sebastian Joseph Day. Having 3 run stops, a sack, a quarterback hit. That's 4 total pressures. So I think he's deserving of a game ball as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to watch. I wasn't sure how much pressure and how active he was, like initially, like immediately, I should say, within those 2.5 seconds. But see, you got 4 pressures and 3 run stops. That's huge.
Yeah. Thomas Martinez said maybe Desmond King.
Depends on
that's probably a good call. Yeah.
I don't remember what his first game was like. As a rookie, yeah, totally. I don't remember what his
Len
first
said
game.
Horvath. That's fair
Yeah,
too.
fair enough.
For a
No one
fullback,
was more
scored a
efficient.
touchdown.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't say. And I was hoping they would do that on fourth down. They went sort of something similar to Austin Eckler, and it worked. So, hey,
Yeah.
yeah, Xander Horvath, man, not bad.
Yeah. Absolutely. But again, no sweeping declarations today for me. I think this
Exactly.
was a positive step in the right
Mhm,
direction. There are definitely some things that this team needs to clean up overall. But they needed to get back on track, and they were able to do that.
mhm,
It was not always super pretty. It was probably too close for comfort. Um, Hugo pointing out Drew Tranquil. That's probably a good decision as well.
mhm.
But yeah, man, this team needed this performance, and if they had lost today, you're talking about a season like going down the drain, because then you're going to
Yeah.
Cleveland, then you're playing the Broncos. Like, if you start 1-5, like that would have been a brutal sequence. So now I think you feel better about this team heading to Cleveland next week, being,
Mhm.
in a much better place offensively going forward, and getting some more reinforcements potentially down the road. So, Tyler, any final thoughts, man?
No, that's mostly it. Like you said, no sweeping declarations. I'm not going to say they're contenders again. They beat up a bad Texans team that picked third last year, and they still almost let that Texans team win. But momentum, it was positive. It feels good heading into this week. I assume I will pick the Chargers to beat the Browns this week. It feels good. Like this was a nice place to leave off after last week. All I can say is the Chargers look like a better team and a more, I don't know, a complete team, but a team that's on the rise, I guess, after their loss to the Jaguars, and that feels good. So momentum is good. Broncos lost, so I'm happy.
Yeah, I mean, we're one Chiefs loss away from being a 2-2 division. It looks like.
Oh, that's right. They play the Bucks.
Yeah,
Ooh, go
uh,
Bucks.
I know, right? But Thomas
Yeah.
points out draft would have started tonight had they lost. 100% would have fired
Hmm.
up some college tape this week if that were the case.
Yeah. Okay. Wait. Last thing. I'm not saying Joe Lombardi's great, but yes, watch Denver or like Carolina or a
Yeah,
lot of teams in the league and tell me that Joe Lombardi's bad. Like, yes, things should be better, absolutely, but by golly, we could be the Matt Rule led Carolina Panthers, and we're not that. So I feel pretty good.
yeah. I've said this a few times. I think there are like 5 or 6 elite play callers in the league, and everybody else is trying to get a B-level coordinator, B-level coaching plan. Like, I think Broncos fans would probably take Joe Lombardi at this point over what they're currently experiencing. So, it could always be worse. That's obviously not an endorsement of Joe Lombardi or anything like that, but it could always be worse.
Yeah, people are saying that Randy Gregory got carted off.
Oh,
Hopefully
wow.
not to take a shit, or hopefully it was to take a shit, like DK Metcalf. And then
Did you see his
Javante went,
tweet after?
yeah, it's like the butt clinch wasn't going to cut it or whatever. Like,
I love DK Metcalf, man. He's
yeah,
such good content. So that was hilarious. Him getting carted off, and I have him in fantasy, so I see that I'm watching the Chargers game, and I get this Yahoo notification, DK Metcalf being carted off. I was like, "You're fucking kidding me! Like, no
yeah,
way!"
yeah,
And then
yeah,
he comes back in. I was like, "What the heck happened?" And then it turns out
yeah.
he just had to take a dump.
I love it. Yeah, Melvin Gordon fumbled today. There's a chance that we will face Melvin Gordon the entire game. Oh, and my mom came up clutch with the super sticker. Thanks, mom.
There we go. Yeah, I think Alex Boone, is that his
Yeah,
name? The third string. I think that's the guy who used to be on the Vikings.
yeah. There's a couple boons I feel like in the league.
Yeah. But no, should be fun. Like I said, definitely no declarations today, but stack this performance up with another positive performance next week and another one after that. That's really what this league is about, man. Battle through adversity, stack up the wins, and kind of see what happens. So, good day for the Chargers overall. Obviously, wish it could be better. They can certainly clean things up, but step in the right direction for sure. All right, that's going to do it for us. Appreciate all of you guys tuning in after this performance. Hopefully, you have a good rest of the week. We'll be back on Tuesday with our preview for the Cleveland Browns game. Quick turnaround, of course. Alex will be back for that one, and then we'll see kind of what happens throughout the week with some of these injury updates. Hopefully on Tuesday and on Saturday, we won't have to spend 30 minutes talking about injuries, but should be a more positive injury talk over the next couple of weeks. So, Tyler, appreciate it again. Appreciate everybody in the chat today, and that's going to do it. Bolt up.